What's up everybody, Josh here with the Manfrotto 460 Pro Gimbal Kit. This is the gimbal you want if you're using slightly heavier cameras and lenses up to 10.1 pounds. That includes my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K with an Olympus 12-100 f4 lens. So let's get started with what's in the box. First, you have a nice dark gray foam case that houses all of the gimbal's components, including rechargeable batteries and a small carbon fiber extension rod so you can support the gimbal with two hands. In a separate box is the wireless remote, the follow focus, and an adjustable gear ring for any non-geared lenses you may want to use. Lastly, and this does not come as part of the kit, is the carbon fiber fast gimboom, which you can use to extend your reach with the gimbal and do things like get cool jib shots. And if you saw my fast single leg tripod review, you know how this works. You twist the middle section and it releases both the top and bottom sections simultaneously. Very fast to set up. This thing is very versatile. It has a male thread on one end, a female on the other, and is compatible with gimboom accessories, so you can do things like attach a monitor. So looking in the case, there are a lot of parts. Even so, I found initial assembly and balancing the camera to be pretty straightforward, or at least I was able to figure it out. Although when attaching the quick release plate to the camera, I would highly recommend using a screwdriver. I tried to tighten it by hand multiple times, but the camera always managed to loosen up on me. You can also attach the multifunction arm to the top, which not only gives you an extra point of contact for the camera, but allows you to attach accessories via the multiple 1/4-20 threads. Now, if balancing this sort of gimbal is new to you, I would recommend going to Manfrotto's YouTube channel to watch the tutorial. There are instructions on assembly and balancing included, but I found the video generally easier to follow. Once balanced, I started the gimbal up and took it for a test drive just to see how stable it was out of the box. Initial tests were okay, but it wasn't quite as smooth as I would have liked, so I just adjusted the strength of the motors up slightly and got much better results. There are other modes you can switch to which will adjust the sensitivity of the gimbal. Now, when you adjust the motors, just be sure to do it in small increments. If you bump it up way too much, the gimbal will just start shaking like crazy because it's trying to compensate for too much weight, which is exactly what happened when I tried to use the adaptive adjustment, which is supposed to set your motor strength automatically. Maybe it would work with a heavier rig, but it just didn't quite work for me. You can also adjust the motor strength in the app, but the app was very slow to respond and was more aggravating than anything, at least when it came to motor adjustment. The most useful feature of the app is to wirelessly connect to your camera for use in conjunction with the wireless remote. With a second operator, you can use this setup to adjust your focus and framing. You can also set the gimbal to mimic movements you make with the remote, which is pretty cool, though it seems like it would take quite a bit of practice for it to be useful. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to test this function with my phone because the Pocket 4K isn't compatible. Normally, you would plug your compatible camera into the gimbal via USB using one of the included cables, allowing you to make all sorts of camera adjustments, take stills, and start and stop recording through the gimbal itself. For a full list of compatible cameras, check out the product page on Manfrotto's website. The menus on the gimbal are pretty straightforward. You just swipe the screen to go from one menu to the next, tap on a setting, then use the joystick to make a change. When you're on the home screen, the joystick also allows you to move the camera in any direction, but you can also use the dial on the side. The dial allows you to control the pan, tilt, and roll axes independently. And if at any time you want to bring the camera back to the starting position, just double press the trigger button. The main use for the wheel, of course, is the follow focus, which was probably the most confusing part of this setup. There are instructions on how to mount the follow focus motor, but I couldn't find anything on how to calibrate it and get it to function. At first I was a little freaked out because I read this in the instructions, which made me think I couldn't even use the follow focus without connecting a camera. Fortunately, I was able to find someone on YouTube who explained how to use it. First, you have to set the range. You move your lens's focus all the way to one side, triple click the motor's button, move it to the other side of the focal range, single click, and it's set. Next, go to the menu, go to knob settings, camera control, then select AKF, LL, or 11. Later, I realized that that was the setting for control via the wireless remote, which also activates the knob on the gimbal. Next, select this little icon with the magnifying glass, hit it one more time so there's a little dot in the middle, and you have focus control. The knob on the side has a good bit of drag to it, which feels nice, and for the most part, controlling the focus was nice and smooth. Unfortunately, when using the wireless remote to control the focus, it wasn't as reliable. It seemed delayed and a little jumpy at times, which makes me think twice about using it on a serious shoot when focus is most critical. Now keep in mind I'm using a stills lens, and a cine lens is going to have more range, which will probably make pulling focus a lot easier. Your primary modes with this gimbal are lock mode, which keeps your camera in place no matter how you move the gimbal. Panning mode locks the tilt and roll axes, but follows the gimbal's pan movements. Pan and tilt mode locks the roll axes, and of course you have all follow mode, where all axes are enabled. Special features include inception mode, which allows you to spin the camera 360 degrees, motion time lapse, where you can set a start and end point for a dynamic time lapse. There's of course a selfie mode, and for those of you who need to produce content for stories, there's a portrait mode. Now when using these modes, and just when using this gimbal in general, your arms can get really tired really fast. So if you're shooting with it for any length of time, I would highly recommend taking advantage of that extension rod for a two-handed grip, or even better, attach the wireless remote as a handle with the included bracket, which not only allows you to get nice low shots, but allows you to hold the gimbal at a more natural angle that's easier on your wrist. And after attaching that handle for the first time, I couldn't help but run through the trees like a scene from The Evil Dead. I mean, what else would you want to do with this thing anyway? So what did I think of the gimbal overall? Well, there's definitely a learning curve. The documentation could be a bit clearer on how to set up the follow focus without you having to dig through the documentation to piece it together yourself. And overall, I wasn't super impressed with the wireless remote or follow focus. However, this is a great standalone gimbal and otherwise works as advertised. The build quality is great, everything appears to be machined metal, and once you have it balanced, you really shouldn't have any major problems. Now, because there were some features that I wasn't able to cover because of camera incompatibility, I'll link to Manfrotto's gimbal videos and some other videos in the description that will kind of help you fill in the blanks. And if you do want to pick up one of these gimbals for yourself, whether it's the Pro Kit, the standalone kit, or maybe the Gimboom, be sure to use the link in the description below. Anytime you use one of my affiliate links, you help support the channel. And if you found this video useful in any way, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.